Welcome to Industry on Blast, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey into the hidden depths of secrets, deception, and untold stories. Hosted by Dr. Marlene Carson, a fearless advocate and survivor, this show is your gateway to the shocking truths and captivating narratives that lie beneath the surface. Get ready to unveil the secrets of the industry and hear from special guests who have experienced it firsthand. This is Industry on Blast.
Thank you and welcome to Industry on Blast. I am your host, Dr. Marlene Carson. I am super excited to have you with me today, and I'm super duper excited to have my guest, Sophia Strother. When I tell y'all, you better put your seatbelt on and get ready because we're going for a ride on this one. Let's bring Sophia to the stage. Sophia, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, and yourself?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. I'm probably looking like a kid at Christmas time because I'm just so blessed to have you here with us today. And really, I'm excited on multiple levels. As we go into the show, you'll understand why. So what I like to do first, Sophia, is play a video of you. Let's do it.
My name is Sophia Strother, and I am a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault. However, I'm also a community advocate for domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse. My story is one of habitual abuse. The instance that kind of set me forth into the path that I'm now sitting here today started when I was 9 years old. My father was my first perpetrator. My abuse started when I was 9 years old, and he started actually with something that becomes very ominous. When my mother was at work, he started his abuse. It started actually with him asking me to watch pornography with him and asking me to carry out the acts that I saw in the film on him, and how he portrayed that is a form of love, and I want you to do what you see on me because I love you like they're portraying their love. I was an only child. We did not go to church. There wasn't really a moral compass for us to kind of say, oh, well, that's not really right, or that's not what they teach us in church. And I'm an only child. My father was an only child. There wasn't really a lot of family to really kind of, who am I going to tell? In the late 80s, early 90s, there weren't billboards around. There weren't ads that you saw in newspapers or in magazines. There weren't advocacy groups that were talking about if you feel like this isn't right or something doesn't feel right, come tell us. There wasn't really any outlets that if something didn't quite feel right, you had somewhere to go. And so for about 2 to 3 years, my father carried on a relationship and basically kind of molded me from a child that I had no voice and this is what I was to do. And I was not to tell my mother because she would be disappointed or she would be jealous of the love that my father had for me. And this really kind of molded my mindset as a very young girl that this was the type of relationships that I would carry on with young men. And unfortunately, this was also the same atmosphere that in the African American community where I'm from on the East Coast, in the New York, Massachusetts area, where crack was very, very prevalent in the African American communities. And my father succumbed to that epidemic, and so did my mother. And unfortunately, my father actually died at a very young age at 39, and my mother succumbed to crack on a very next level. Unfortunately, in the midst of her addiction, she made some very poor choices that led to me, unfortunately, having to have my body be used as a means for her to secure drugs. And in the midst of that, I then became in the life of trafficking as a result of her being able to secure her drugs. So I then went from one epidemic of sexual abuse and child abuse to then another level of sexual abuse. And even in the 80s, we didn't call it trafficking. This kind of key term that we're now using as trafficking wasn't really called that. It wasn't kind of as we like to, we have fad words that come about based on the times. And so I went through that phase until I was about 14 or 15 years old. That led to a rape that I was, when I was 14, and I became a teen mom at 15 years old with my first son as a product of a rape. And so when you say what was kind of the key thing of sexual assault for me, it's been a habitual cycle of abuse from the age of 9 that then led into an atmosphere that allowed myself to be in relationships that led to domestic violence. A lot of time people don't realize that it's a conducive atmosphere, that you can't always separate the two of sexual assault and domestic violence. One can lead to the other because you become either infiltrated with low self-esteem, or you're looking for something else, and then you allow yourself to be partnered with someone or in an environment that you can't get out of because of certain circumstances or the lack of, should I say, parental guidance or love that you needed when you were younger. So again, it started at 9, and it went from one, I say, tragedy or trauma to the next until I was about 16 or 17 years old, and my grandmother was able to kind of pull me out the first wave of sexual trauma that I had endured for about 8 to 9 years.
I gotta catch my breath. Okay. When you look at that, come on, let's process how you feel right now. How do you feel?
Yeah, I haven't watched that video in a long time. And with the passing of my mother tragically last year in a fire, which is also how my father died at 39.
Were they together?
Was,
Because they both were in the fire. They weren't together, two separate incidents?
they were two separate incidents. So my father died in 1993. He had a withdrawal seizure behind the wheel that turned into a heart attack. And he ran into 12,000 gallons of gasoline that had just been filled at the mobile gas station in Springfield, Massachusetts. And so I was 13. That was in 1993. And then last year, my mother passed away in a house fire where she got out of the fire, but she went back in to try to save her husband. And unfortunately, they succumbed to the fire right at the front door. And so, and that was literally 30 years, almost to the month that my father had passed from fire.
Wow.
And so, you know, hearing me talk about them, and they're both gone, like that chapter of my life, both being gone. It more so of a painful of their loss. Like it's just a remembrance. So much has died around them, whether it was my innocence that died because of their actions, to now just knowing I'm parentless at this age. Now there's kind of a sense of loss all over again. Of abandonment, even though it wasn't of their own accord per se, but still just that level of loss I'm feeling again, just watching that.
Sophia, when I tried to describe you, we literally only had one conversation, maybe two. But when I tried to describe you, you made such an impact on my life the day that we met, that I tried to come up with some words that would I'm getting ready to cry. Okay. I don't do this, Sophia.
I know, I'm trying to keep it together.
So I'm trying to come up with some words, and I think of a champion, an overcomer, a survivor. I don't even like the word survivor, so I'm going to call you a thriver, because you're thriving in it. I don't care what happened. But you yourself described yourself as an evolver.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, I mean, it really dropped in my spirit because I'm noticing I went through a space the last 2 years, which really my identity has completely been stripped away from my sexual assault that happened in 2021 to then an illness that came over me, and then of all of this loss, and then the
Wait a
gain
minute.
of
Now,
my.
we have to back up. So you just can't be dropping these bombs and then going on with the story. Okay. So what year did your mom pass?
She passed last year, February of last year,
2022 or 20,
of
23?
2023.
23.
Mm-hmm.
And you were raped in what year?
2021.
2021. From what I
But the
recall,
trial just concluded this year.
that's what I was getting ready to tell you. From what I recall, that trial was going on as you were grieving your mom. Now
Yes.
you're in the midst of my God, girl, let me think of some other words, okay? Because I need about 4 more words to describe you.
Honey,
Wow.
2023 was a doozy. That's why I said that evolve. I was so trying to be the old me, even with the rise of my business. Just, oh no, but I'm still Sophia. Even in the midst of dealing with this sexual assault trial, no, I'm still Sophia. But all of that just kind of like
You could never
literally.
be. So first of all, let me ask you this, because I don't know. So you got to give us a point of reference. Who was the old Sophia?
I felt that the older Sophia, well, if I back up in time, rewind time, was a little bit more jubilant.
Okay. Okay.
I'm very charismatic, but I was more so. I wasn't as emotional. Like now I cry at the drop of a dime. I mean, bring me to tears. It's just crazy.
Okay.
I was a lot more outgoing in the sense to where I was very social. I've become less than that since my attack, but I was a lot more social. Even media, just my whole everything, community, that I just did a lot more outward facing things. And since 2021, that has not been the case at all.
Did you know your assailant?
Excuse me?
Did you know your assailant?
A sailor?
Did you know the person who assaulted you?
I had just met him. So we had known each other literally for about 4 or 5 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 4 or 5 days. That in and of itself, I think the level of I lived in a level of fear for a good while. Fear and lies. It said December 18th, I was doing a live on taxes, and then I had some of my clients notice that I said I was going to fall back from that a little bit. So I went back on and did a live about the actual sexual assault case because I had been somewhat quiet because it hadn't gone to trial yet. So I didn't want to mess my trial up.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. And I just basically really talked about I've been lying for 2 years saying I'm okay. People ask, "Oh, how are you doing?" "Girl, I'm good. I'm good." And primarily because I didn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable with what I'm really going through or exhausted with what I'm actually, because it's been literally for 2 straight years, one thing after another. And so I really did it to save everybody else. And I finally came to the conclusion in December, we're done.
We're done. Yeah, because right now I'm just like getting kind of mad. Okay. I'm like, no, because we and I understand totally what you're saying, but we do that at the cost of sacrificing ourselves.
Right.
Which is not right. Honey, Jesus took care of all that. So
you're absolutely right.
You know what I'm saying? We can't keep sacrificing ourselves trying to save someone else's emotions. Or don't ask me how I'm doing if you really don't want to know.
That part. Because most people really don't.
No.
Most people really don't. It's just a formality that we have in our social environment to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" But you really don't want to know how I'm doing.
You probably don't even have the capacity to handle how we really doing. Okay.
And that's what I said. And it's funny because the last couple of weeks I've been blatantly honest. They be like, "How you doing?" "Not good."
See,
today's not a great day. And they're like, "Oh,
I'm glad."
Right.
I'm glad. I'm glad. So while you are processing the grief, the loss of your mom, you're in this trial. How did the trial come out? Is it over?
The trial is completely done. It was a 2-part trial. So the first part was the actual trial in front of a jury that decided his fate, which they came back in the. This is like a 1 to 2% chance that you even get a conviction in sexual assault cases because only 5% go to trial. And so they did come back and convict him of a 2nd-degree aggravated felony for sexual assault. And then he chose to have the judge actually do a sentencing, which means he basically bought himself time. And unfortunately, the judge did not heed my concern about remanding him into custody. He allowed him to be free until sentencing, which he never showed back up. So we had sentencing, right? Sentencing hearing was December 14th of 2023. They put me on the stand again after I had already done initial trials, 4.5 hours on the stand, most humiliating time of my life. And the judge wouldn't even look me in the face. He knew he messed up by letting him stay out. He gave him 10 years, but he's on the run currently right now. So I still haven't had, for me, closure because he's not apprehended yet. So I still have a strong level of alertness of my surroundings and how I move. Yeah, until he's captured.
My God. And so was he from the same city?
He was, but when he was under, he had on an ankle monitor, which conveniently enough, nobody could find him on the ankle monitor, but we're going to leave that alone. He was living in Houston with some family, they said, but he also, we didn't find this out until after my assault, he also was convicted by the federal government for being a part of a 7-person money laundering scheme of $3.5 million in Houston, and was given 8.5 years for that. And they let him out early in time to kidnap, torture, and rape me.
Oh my!
But that's the system,
girl.
That's the
Houston
system.
Would have issues. Okay, they would have a problem because I'd be trying to sue Houston at this point. Come on, they failed. That system failed
all the way around. All the way. Well, the entire journey for me was one of the worst experiences of my life. I almost regretted telling other survivors to seek justice because I didn't really comprehend all of the gaps that are in local law enforcement, healthcare advocacies, the judicial system, and the prosecution. The 5 sectors that we intersect with are flawed when it comes to trying to seek justice.
Yeah. And so what's interesting about that statement is, have you ever watched or read the Shared Hope grade card for attorney generals?
No, I need to do that.
I'm getting ready to send you a link. Okay. And so it's interesting because I think Houston, I got to look it up. So I believe Houston has I'm going to just tell you, I don't want to lie. We got an F. We've been doing this grade card for 13 years and we still got an F, but the state of Ohio has a C in convictions, but they have a F in services for victims, an F in resources, a F. They got an F in everything else. Okay. And so when I looked up Houston, it was pretty like a B, A or B. And I'm like, how? Based on what you're just saying. Hold on.
Yeah. My trial was actually in Georgetown, Williamson County. I would be curious to know if they even have a grade, but so
they do it by state.
Okay.
Yeah, they do it by state.
Yeah, my prosecutor who came on my case literally like a couple of weeks before it was going to, so that's a whole nother thing, but he ended up being phenomenal. His name is Ryan. He ended up being phenomenal, him and his team. I was a little weary because he came in last minute. They switched last minute, but they ended up pulling it out and they really went hard for me during trial. That much I can't say.
Oh, you got to see this. So I'm texting this to you right now. This is so interesting. Wow. So their grade card for criminal provisions, which really means they prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, they have an A. Mm-hmm. For identification of and response to victims, they have an F. So
That
they have
makes sense.
that. She said that makes sense.
Yep.
Continuum of care, they have a C. That's interesting. Access to justice for survivors, they have a B. Tools for a victim-centered criminal justice response, they have a D. And
That makes
prevention
sense.
and training, they have a B. Now, one of the things I see that makes sense because Texas does a lot of training on trafficking. I definitely
that's why I said that makes sense. I mean, they
Yeah.
birthed the council that I was the facilitator over for almost 4 years out of that. So I can see that 100% as far as the training and trying to do prevention.
But there's criminal provisions. It says policy goals accomplished in areas related to buyer accountability under the trafficking law, buyer and trafficking accountability under the state's CSEC laws. Basically, they're saying we're going to prosecute you if you get caught. Well, I don't find that to be an A.
No, I don't. But the one thing I can say, and I think this is why they got the A, was Texas now is the only state in the US that actually counts it a felony for solicitation. And I think that's what made their grade that A, because that just got enacted in 2022.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree
that's probably what would put them over, because that's not, always, it's still not equitable when you break it down to race and how these prosecutions go. That's still another conversation. But I think that's where the A came from, is they're now the only state to make it a felony. But again, it's one thing to charge somebody, it's another thing to convict, and that has still not caught up. It's still not has caught up.
Sophia, we need to take a break. I need to breathe. We're going to take a break and come back in just a few minutes.
All right.
Stay tuned for more jaw-dropping revelations and captivating stories. Industry on Blast will be right back, ready to uncover the secrets of the industry that will leave you speechless. Don't miss a moment. Thank you for listening to Industry on Blast. We'll be back shortly with more eye-opening discussions, incredible stories, and inspiring guests. Your journey into the depths of the industry continues soon.
Thank you and welcome back to Industry on Blast. I am your host, Dr. Marlene Carson, and we are here today with Sophia Strother Lewis. And, she's an entrepreneur. And I really wanted to talk about some entrepreneur stuff, but you got me so engaged in this conversation. I'm like, oh God, Marlene, shift your mind and let's talk about this entrepreneurship journey. So you are a business owner. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I have a few businesses. The one that I've been at the longest, just first and foremost, is Trustworthy Consulting. It's something that I founded when I was 21 years old. Where I was doing taxes for individuals, and I was so fed up with H&R Block, not really digging deep to help individuals get the best as far as for tax liability, lowering their tax liability. So it started off doing taxes, and then it was being able to help individuals fundraise. That's where my academia background comes from. I have a master's in marketing, and then I went on to have a successful career fundraising for universities and for American Heart Association. Okay. And so just really wanting to pass the keys that God given me to people. And so that, which I still do today, has also been one where we've been able to contract with school districts and do my testimony, where I literally in Austin ISD, we had a contract for me to go to speak to every single one of their campuses from middle school up. And share my book, and then also just be real with them about, again, overcoming childhood or adolescent tragedies. But my largest company is L2E Industries. I employ about 94 now after peak season. I contract with Amazon. We're considered delivery service partners. So the blue vans with the Prime smile on the side, I have almost 40 of those that we run here in Central Texas. And so that's the one that I probably have been able to do the most philanthropy work with, because I donated, like the first quarter that I was in business, I donated 100% of those proceeds to start a medical clinic during COVID, so that we can, to get into Black and Brown communities. So we had all Black nurses, so that you can feel a sense of comfort beyond the racial divide. And then we've been able to do a lot of other things to help in the voice of human trafficking, sexual assault, and domestic violence.
Girl, you gonna make me move to Texas. Because first of all, I love Texas anyhow, but just the work that's being done there from the survivors and those that really have used their lives as to give hope for real and to give inspiration. Absolutely. I see it really clearly. Now, you said something that I want to know. All of the things you've gone through, you've still been able to manage. I think when we talked, it was like 120 something employees. And you're able to keep that hat on and take care of your business. How do you do it going through all the things, the challenges, the trials and the triumphs that you're going through?
You know, I hate to admit it, but being trafficked and being where I had to kind of fend for myself in my adolescence, I was a hustler. So like being able to compartmentalize is something that I had to
That's
do.
my word. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I had to, like, even though I'm, having to get on my knees at night or on my back at 13 years old with these older men to make sure the bills are paid at the house while my mom is on drugs and I got younger brothers, I still went to school and got A's and B's. Like, I'm on honor roll all throughout high school. You would never think that this was happening to me at home outside of the fact that I might come to school with the same clothes on, or I might be falling asleep in class. Those were like nuances, but again, we weren't talking about trafficking back then for a teacher to even say, are you just, what's happening?
Right.
Yeah.
But so did the teachers ever notice any abnormal behavior?
No, I was just mainly dubbed as bad. Like, because I may act. And so I get in trouble. I'm at the principal's office. I'm getting the paddle. I'm getting all of these different things. But nobody once sat down to say, is everything okay at home?
Yeah. Well, everything was, wow.
Yeah, she got a smart mouth. She, she thinks she knows it all. No, I'm literally taking care of my family. I'm probably growner than you are.
Wow.
With your body and mind. But yeah, so no, nobody really noticed. Again, most people just judged for the most part.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And so many of the victims that we deal with today feel like they've been stigmatized and not asked what's going on at home. Right. Is it, are you eating at night? Are you sleeping well? Kids, going to school and fall asleep in class. They don't realize they've been up all night fighting.
That.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so when it comes to, you've done a lot, girl.
I know. And that's a symptom of my abuse. I do need to say,
you think that's a symptom of your abuse?
I do, because I have very distinct memories, and I put it in my first book about my father. But and I hadn't gotten to my book about my mom, but like, her main thing was to call me a slut, and I ain't never gonna be nothing. You just nothing but a slut, and you ain't never gonna be nothing. I can see her face. I can still smell her breath. I can still smell her sweat, being so mad and distraught with me because I was leaving her. Like, her cash cow was leaving. I remember when I left.
She's mad. She's mad.
Oh, she's hot. And she almost, it makes me feel almost like Color Purple, like, until you do right. Like, she is almost like she wanted to curse me. Yeah. And so when I left my mother at 15, October 21st, 1995, never to go back to her again, I had made up in my mind that I was never going to be what my father said I was, which was a slut, and I'm only good for my back, and my mom, who said it. So I did everything. I went to college. I had a son 3 weeks after having my son. I'm back in school taking 18 credit courses with another son. I'm bringing both of my boys to class because I was determined I'm going to graduate, which they didn't do. I'm going to go to college, which they didn't do. I bought my first home at 20 because you're not going to tell me that I can't make it. So I've been a homeowner since 20 years old. Like,
come on.
Everything in my mind, and this is why I talk on it when I go speak, anger can be a fuel to success. People want to downplay anger, but I was so mad that I was determined I didn't care if I had to have 2-3 jobs. Like, I was never going to be
Come on.
what they thought I was going to be. And that's why I said it's a symptom of my abuse, because I had to evolve over this last 2 years to stop and say, why am I doing this? I had signed up for a doctoral program at Liberty University, and my first semester I had just launched L2E. It was right at COVID, so I got a daughter at home that's suffering because she can't go to school. I'm doing a doctorate. I'm working another full-time job for the state of Texas. And after I got I'm like, why? Just so my mom can respect me and call me Dr. Sophia Strother? Like, it's not going to do anything different from what I'm already doing. Stop. Like, Sophia, stop.
I get it.
So I've had to evolve to say, I don't have to allow them to control me even today in what I'm doing. And
you know what, Sophia, I totally
get it.
I get that, because really the only reason I went to school is because they said I couldn't. And I would go into rooms, especially when I started the organization, I would go into rooms and I was the prostitute. I remember going into a class where I was facilitating a diversity, equity, and inclusion training. Everyone in there was Caucasian, and they looked at me and said, "Oh, you must be the victim." Now we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and you just gonna call me out like that. So then when I said, "No, I'm Dr. Marlene Carson," they, their attitude changed. And then when I actually facilitated the class, because I was trying to use it as a teachable moment.
Right.
But for real, I didn't thought about dropping that, doctor, to be quite honest. I just want to be me. Can I just do that? Yeah, I just want to be me. I'm sick of trying to prove and trying to convince and try to be. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it.
I spent years of my life, I really just wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be, I'm a type 2 personality according to the Enneagram. So relationships are like air for me. I'm always wanting to feel, have it to where I can feel needed. And in that process, I've allowed myself to be abused. I've allowed myself to be manipulated because I didn't have a standard for myself. I didn't know what that was like. So it wasn't until my late 30s that I realized I had to have a standard for me, or I'm going to continue to have these toxic relationships all around me, including family.
I think you must have took my identity or something, because you telling my story. Look, we get ready to take just one more break, and then we're coming back with Miss Sophia Strother Lewis.
Stay tuned for more jaw-dropping revelations and captivating stories. Industry on Blast will be right back, ready to uncover the secrets of the industry that will leave you speechless. Don't miss a moment. Thank you for listening to Industry on Blast. We'll be back shortly with more eye-opening discussions, incredible stories, and inspiring guests. Your journey into the depths of the industry continues soon.
Sophia, I want to talk about the transition and transformation that your life has gone through. First of all, let's talk about your walk with God. How did that happen?
Because I was
not laughing. She laughing.
Because I was not raised in church. My parents did not go. Right. I think I might have went once or twice with my grandmother and slept. It wasn't. I used to go to a Camp Springfield Boys and Girls Club in Springfield, Massachusetts, and we did a.
I was trafficked in Springfield.
Huh?
I was trafficked in Springfield.
You know what? I hate to say it, but I wouldn't be surprised because of the environment that Springfield is right now.
My people lived on King Street in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh my goodness!
On King Street, for real, okay?
Oh my goodness! Yeah. I actually have some people now that I know that currently stay right around the corner from King Street.
Oh,
wow! What a small world.
Small world. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So some friends were singing in the choir of mine, and they invited me to come to their church to sing in the choir. And, so I started maybe 10, 11 years old going just to sing in the choir. And then I could go over, her name was Bonnie Weaver at the time, is Bonnie Cicero now. I could go over how she going to eat. So I know I would get a meal because I knew I was going to get one at home. And then from there, it was more of a superficial relationship. My first church, Holy Temple Church God in Christ, because I really didn't understand what relationship meant, because I would see these preachers preach, but then I see what they're doing at home, and like it just wasn't making sense. Was some great times there, but then some very negative and dark, abusive. Having older men abusing me, that kind of continued even there. So I don't think I really had a real relationship to start to really come to fruition until my early 20s. And that's when God actually gave me a dream that I remember to this day. And that literally changed my focus on really trying to have a better relationship. Right now, currently within the Church of God in Christ, I hold a position. I'm the supervisor of women, which basically we work right alongside the bishop and over Senegal, Gambia, West Africa. And so I'm able to kind of bring this message of resiliency, especially dealing with sexual violence, which is very rampant and actually part of their culture in Africa. And I'm very honored to have that. But for right now, faith has been what's kept me from losing my mind and snapping on folks. So
that part right there.
Yeah. It's kept me grounded because I really was in a dark place toward the latter part of 2023. And I really wanted to throw in the towels. First time I had gotten to that place since 2016, where I'm exhausted from it all. I was like, God, enough. And I really had to talk to him. I was like, enough. I'm sold out. I got the Job experience. I pray for everybody that I know don't like me, that you've released me from my own family, just in case they worn out from me. I pray for them. I need the double for everything that I've lost. I've lost friends. I've lost family. I've lost even my health. I went through losing even financially. I've done all the losses that Job did. And so now I'm ready for restoration. And that's really what Job got to a point where I need some respite. It's too much, too much. And that's kind of the prayer that I've been having to God. Please give me respite on this side. I'm careful
on this side, Kevin.
On this side. Let me just have some respite and restoration so that I can really, continue the zeal that I once had for him and not be exhausted from life.
Well, I'm really praying that God will restore that jubilance that you once, even though I can't tell what I see now. Girl, I see the joy of the Lord. Okay. That's all I see. But you say that it's missing. I'm asking God to definitely restore that jubilance back to your soul. And I think about the scripture, girl, we preachers, so they shouldn't have never let us have a mic. But I think about the scripture when David said, he restores my soul. And I believe that for victims of any atrocity, that's the thing that breaks up within us the most. It's our soul. It's not our spirit. It's our soul. And so it's like when trauma happens, it punches our soul and then it breaks us up into parts. And some of the parts deal with the fractures of the trauma, but then we have the adult part that says, I still got to go to work tomorrow. That says, I still got to live. I still got to feed my kids. I still have to do the laundry. But that part, and so we're able to compartmentalize that part until it pops up. And sometimes it pops up at the most inopportune times.
Yes.
And the unfortunate part about it, we never know when that part is going to be triggered and decides to pop up. And so I pray for victims and survivors alike that God would restore our soul. But I was asking that question to ask you, what would you say to victims now, to survivors now that are in some of the situations you were in? How would you speak to them now to give them hope?
It's a loaded question. Especially given that I just went through the process of seeking justice in the midst of trying to kind of regain who I am again. But one of the things that I've learned in this recent journey is I had to allow myself to hurt. I think there's such a notion that we have to be strong, or like I said before, I was a fraud for 2 years, lying to people saying I was good because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable. I didn't want them to be exhausted or again, grief, which you're grieving after you've been abused, comes in waves where, yes, I can laugh today and then be a mess tomorrow. But that literally healing is messy. And that's okay. Like nobody can give you a prescription to say, well, in 3 weeks you'll be over it. Or if you press charges, you'll feel validated. Or if you go through a trial, which, trust me, just getting the trial and guilty is not enough. Like I think I was re-triggered to like it just happened all over again after the conviction. Like I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing his face staring at me while I was on the stand, and my son, who's also the product of a rape, sitting in the audience having to listen to that with the tears streaming down his face. Like I had to realize I'm not okay. And I know we keep saying this, but I can't stress it enough. Embracing not being okay is really a courageous step, because we're being honest, brutally honest. And if you have people in your space that can't accept that, then those are individuals that it's their loss. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not your fault. There's nothing to be ashamed or guilty of. It's nothing you need to feel like you need to rush through or lie about what you're feeling to make someone else try to understand. I had to be transparent and unapologetically me in pain.
Wow.
And I think that is probably one of the biggest things that I can say, because trying to hide it in front prolonged my processing. And as a result, it hit even harder for me.
So it's okay not to be okay.
It's okay. And I think especially as Black women, we need to hear that for sure. Because we're definitely, just from historical, even through slavery, even through Jim Crow, even through now, which we're still dealing with oppression to some degree, we're always meant to be the strong matriarch, the strong woman. Nothing phases you. What happens in this house stays in this house.
Oh my gosh.
And that just breaks you, because there's only so much that you can bear by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think just telling Black women, it's okay. It's okay, honey. Like you can cry. You can laugh one day, cry tomorrow, be a mess at home, and still be professionally good.
Right.
Like all of those things can be true all at the same time. And that's okay.
You're absolutely right. And the fact of the matter is, something you said was very powerful. Your anger fueled you.
Yeah.
It was your fuel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's contrary to spiritual relationships. Like you'll go to church and no.
Don't let your son go down on your wrath. I get it.
Yeah. Vengeance belongs to God, and pray about it. Don't worry about it. But the Bible also say faith without works is dead. Prayer and supplication. There's no such thing as I'm going to pray and be done. It means there has to be some follow-up. And for me, the Bible also says you can be angry and sin not. So I can be angry all day long. If Jesus can go into a place where he saw they were gambling in his father's house, the Bible didn't say that he just walked in there with a calm voice, sat back and observed all of this treachery. The Bible says that he flipped over tables. He was yelling and screaming at the top of he was angry.
Yes.
And so sometimes we need to get angry about the fact that we've been made to feel like we got to appease everybody. That we got to be somebody that we're not. And once you get angry enough about that, then you stop. Like I said, we're done.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. I can't do everybody's project. I can't make everybody great, especially if you ain't ready to actually be great, because some people talk a good game but ain't ready to do no action. But we're done. We're done.
I had a friend call me and she said she has a program, and our program has about 800 women in it. And the program was about $600 per woman, right? And so she may even have more. It might have been 8,000 women. It was a lot of women, okay? And she calls me one day and she says, Marlene, the Holy Spirit told me to give everybody their money back. I said, girl, that was the devil. That was God. That was the devil. What is you talking about, girl?
Loose hair.
Yeah, okay, loose hair. And you know what she said? I said, why would God tell you that? She said, because they're not ready to work. She said they think they can throw money at my program, but they're really not ready to do nothing. And so look, she returned all of their money, which was quite a bit of money. And so, and she had just bought a house, you know, so she depended on this, right?
Right.
How about it was probably 2 weeks later, she got a contract for 1.6 million, and that was the start of the contract. Okay.
See that? See
That
that?
was
That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, even for the listeners here, regardless of what you've gone through, and it can seem like all the odds are against you, you're not going to be able to get it back together. But I'm telling you, keep pressing on. Keep doing what you're doing. Do not give up, because I don't care what the society says, what system says, what they say, what mama even may say. Baby, you know what's in you. And when you identify what's in you, I know for me, I've had to, girl, the family dynamic. Let me tell you something. Who is my brother? Who is my mother? The one to do the will. Okay. Ain't that what Jesus said? The one to do the will. And so I have enough wisdom and confidence in God to know he'll bring it all back together, because all things going to work together for our good.
Exactly.
But if I got to leave you for a season in order to get me together, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Deuces, baby. That's what we're going to do. That's exactly what we're going to do. Hey, you said something. I want to kind of go back, and I want you to expound on this a little bit. And I'm asking you this question because I've been thinking about the word trafficking. Okay. You called it a fad word. And so I was out doing street outreach, and I asked the girl, was she being trafficked? And she started laughing, Sophia. She said, I don't even have a car. What you talking about?
That.
Okay. She had no clue what, and she was clearly a victim. She had no clue whatsoever what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so I've been saying,
use that on the street.
Okay. But we need to, how can victims possibly identify them being a victim if they don't even know the language y'all talking?
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
They just can't. And even though, you know, I applaud UT of Austin, especially here in Texas, for attempting to try to get statistics on trafficking here. They were saying over 313,000 or 311,000 adults at any given time, and like 76,000 children. And I'm like, there's no way that's accurate. One, most children don't even have a clue. Like me, I just thought my mom was ratchet. I honestly, because it was sex for survival, I didn't realize that she was my pimp. Like I didn't put my mom's my pimp. She ain't
because no really, I want to know what kid is saying, "Hey, count me, give me your count me. I'm over." Girl, please, ain't nobody.
No. So what they had to do was use CPS records, which they don't even always look for tracking. Like that's new. So they're using.
It's new here too. Trust me, it's new here too.
Right. So they're using data from CPS, DFPS, and the law enforcement. But even with women, like I always go back, and I'm paraphrasing her quote. Harriet Tubman had a quote. I would have saved so many more slaves if they only knew they were slaves. And it's the same thing with what you're saying. If we don't incorporate actual language that's being spoken in the field we're trying to eliminate, it's hard for those that are in the midst of it to even understand what trafficking is, especially when we conflate smuggling and trafficking. A lot of people think that smuggling is actually trafficking. And they're like, well, I'm not an illegal immigrant trying to get over the border, so that's not me. So we don't even realize how people are perceiving the conversations we're having.
I mean, we got a lot of work to do, okay?
Yeah,
and sometimes I'm going to have to talk about this subject. I really don't want to, but let me say this first. So sometimes I sit and say, how far have we come? You know, it can feel like my godmother, who I interviewed a couple of months back, will put on a show in the next couple of weeks. Her name is Flauncey Brown Wright, and mother was a civil rights leader, okay, with Martin Luther King. And when she looks and sees how far we've come, she says, we've made some headway. But we still got a long way to go. When it comes to the education and awareness of these issues, the resources, and specifically when it comes to people of color. We have a long way to go. We recently, our organization, Black Leaders Against Sex Trafficking, we recently partnered with The Ohio State University, and we did a white paper on victims of trafficking with disabilities. Women of color that were trafficked with disabilities. Some of the stories we heard when we presented that to our state, they just couldn't believe it. And I'm thinking, well, why can't you believe it? And it's been happening right here in your face.
Right.
This, we have a long way to go when it comes to that. But I want to ask you, when it comes to trafficking, have you been watching the headlines and the blogs, and specifically what's happening in Texas when it comes to the church?
Well, we have seen some pastors busted for engaging, and of course, they're Black men being busted for engaging in trafficking. Of course, they're Black men that we see exposed.
So it's so interesting, and I totally get your point. And I'm going to say allegedly. This whole hip hop culture with Diddy and all this, look, you know, we got to go here, right? We just got to go here.
I'm all right with it. I'm all right with it.
All right, cool. So when it comes to Cassie and that case, and I think Diddy now has 4 human trafficking charges, allegedly. I just wonder, first of all, with Cassie's case, I wonder how they define trafficking. And I say that because he paid for men to come to have sex with her. Okay? This is what so I read their whole, she got a 40-page document, okay?
Yep.
No one was paid for her to have sex. Explain, how was that trafficking?
I think the point of reference she's trying to make is that she felt forced, regardless of him paying them. She felt forced to have sex with these men, and potentially he might have gotten favors as a result of that, and that's the currency component that he got out of it. So that could be the perspective that she's coming from, is I was forced to have sex, and you know, I really didn't want to, and he did get something out of it, and his currency is not cash. It could be pleasure, it could be favors, it could be sexual acts done for him as a result of her engaging in that. So I think that's kind of it. It's messy because, you know, they gotta prove the 3 components of trafficking, and I think that's also the reason why she went to civil as opposed to criminal. Right. Initially, because you don't have to prove all 3 components of trafficking like you do, you know, on a criminal side. But it also says a lot that within 24 hours he settled, and I'm gonna leave that right there.
Girl, well, I actually heard it was 8 hours that he settled. It was definitely less than
24 hours before it came out. But yeah, I heard it was fairly quick. And then that nobody's actually refuted her accounts. There's actually been people to come out and support her accounts of what's happening, and that's gave the courage. Same thing with Epstein. It's like it took one. Same thing with Harvey Weinstein. Same thing with Cosby. If you believe all of that, but it just takes the one that starts that ripple effect, and then everybody's like, okay, well, if she can put herself on the line, then you know, maybe I can too.
So let me say, I'm all for Cassie. Trust me, I am down with Cassie. And I believe that anyone that abused, I wouldn't care if it wasn't trafficking, to be honest. That girl went through some stuff with him.
She was sexually abused the entire relationship. I mean, it just, and verbally and mentally. And I felt for her. I actually, that came out while I was going through my trial. And, you know, people were like, well, why did she stay? Why did she this? We all hear that nonsense, you know, as survivors. But it's something about that mental bond that they can hook you with, to where we say it all the time, you can be in prison without being in prison. And there's a lot of free people in prison because they have the mental freedom, that a lot of us did not have in that moment. And fear, especially when you're dealing with a millionaire, billionaire, and somebody else that's already gotten away with murder.
Come on.
I might be quiet too.
I would, girl, please. We know. Look, I'm gonna speak for myself. I know I would. Okay, it ain't even. I know that I would. I also wanted just to be clear. Those 3 words that you referenced, those words are force, fraud, and coercion. Usually, just for our listening audience, those are the 3 components that have to be proven if it's an adult. If it's a kid, those components do not have to be proven. But the reality of it is what those women went through. And sometimes I think they sold them a dream. You know what a pimp do? The whole grooming process, all of it. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we buy it.
Especially when there's vulnerabilities or insecurities there, or if it's a society thing. We saw it with R. Kelly and how that played out. You know, parents had an expectation that he's a gold mine. Like if I get my kid to get mentored and it's like so. Or these girls, you know, they do it even because he didn't have just little girls. He had some adults that got sucked into the cortex too. But I think there's a lot of insecurities that a lot of us have just based on upbringing that you don't have to necessarily be abused to be insecure. It could have been bullying. It could have just been society pressure that you got to be bone thin. You got to look like this. There's so many different things that leads us to believing the hype.
Wow. So you mentioned that they didn't have to be kids. And I think about one of the articles I was reading about Diddy allegedly. I gotta keep saying that word. That word that became a buzzword in my psyche, okay? Allegedly. But when I think about the parents of Justin Bieber, and when I think about Usher's parents, allowing them to go stay with Diddy in this Diddy camp, baby. I don't know. That was for me.
You never know. He might have laid it out real good though. Like Diddy been around for a minute. We all know his story, which we give him props as a hustler. I mean, he was doing what he had to do as an intern. He built his way up.
He did.
On a business acumen tip, that's what he did. He's been known to be able to finesse. He probably set it and lined it out really nicely look at Bieber was a YouTube phenomenon. Like he was posting little videos.
But he was 10. He was 10 years old.
Yeah, that's better than having to go through American Idol. I just put some things on there and boom, Diddy found me. So he might have laid it out real smooth that he gets him a quality education, safe, this, and that. And, I don't know what I would do. I think it's different if I have a female versus a son.
Yeah.
Your mindset is, okay, well, maybe
it's totally different. Yeah.
You don't think that there'll be sexual, like, homosexual things going on. You're thinking that they're not going to be it's just different. Female, my daughter wouldn't have went with R. Kelly. That's just me, unless I'm going to be there with her. Like, that's just me and how I mother. But with my son, I might have said, we can give this a little go. Or I might have said, I want a male relative to be with him to make sure he good.
Okay.
My other son or something like that. I probably would have something like that, but he probably finessed the heck out of them folks.
He had to. He absolutely had to. One of the interviews I watched, Usher, he was doing, and they asked him the question, would you send your children to a Diddy camp? He said, hell no. That's exactly what he said. He said, hell no. I said, okay now. Okay.
Everybody tell the truth. Cat Williams, everybody.
Everybody tell the truth. Oh my God. So, okay. So now, girl, you opening up cans of worms here, baby.
Honey, everybody telling the truth.
Everybody
being exposed.
So what is I don't even know to ask your thoughts, opinion. You don't even have to answer this question. I'm just bringing it up, okay? What is the thought about TD Jakes allegedly grooming Manasseh Jordan? Have you heard about that one?
I have. I saw actually viewed, and I didn't realize who he was at the time when I was scrolling through and I saw it. I've been around the judge I've been around the church for a long time. I've been married to pastors. I work on the national level for Church of God in Christ. I've been around a while.
I hear you.
And yes, some relationships, mentor to mentee can be questionable, especially given how intimate or quote unquote close you become. The one thing I can say about TD Jakes, obviously, I think everybody, period, has some testimony that something he said has definitely touched them or rang true.
Oh, for sure.
I'm surprised he's gone this long without a scandal, if I'm being transparent. Any type of quote unquote mega celebrity pastor has been embroiled in some type of scandal. Now, whether or not I think he's, bisexual, I don't think so. To be honest, I don't care what you do behind closed doors. Right? Nobody's perfect.
And I saw you right there. I've been asking myself, why do people care?
I mean, and for people to think that he's this perfect man, period, like,
that's not even realistic.
The Messiah has died. I'm like, he is not God. He is a messenger of God. And for the rest of his days, he'll be praying for God's mercy and grace and protection and forgiveness, like we all do.
Right.
But I think it's a stretch. I think he's just, because he's really the only quote unquote like celebrity pastors that's hanging with like all genres of folks outside of like a Jamal Bryant. He may get out there too, but and Jamal's been embroiled in controversy too. It's just I don't know. I want to not believe it and not feed into the fury, but because so much of what's been coming out about Diddy has been more on the truthful side, you then question.
I feel you on that.
I think it's association. Maybe the association with him and he's going through this got him sucked into the vortex.
That could be. But I was talking to a friend earlier today, and I told her, I said, I want to choose to believe that it's not true.
Right.
And because I have some relationship connections, some ties to the Jakes. I actually was his pastor's secretary. His pastor lived right here in my city. Okay. So I've been knowing him a long time. And I want to choose to believe that it's not true because I think it's just too heavy. I don't even have the capacity to carry that, right?
Right.
On the other side of that, I know things that would say, well, we need to have some talks about some things. Because now that I'm older, everything, my mother used to say, if it don't come out in the wash, it's coming in the rinse. But it's coming out one way or the other. So I'm gonna pin that right there. And
I just need us to just.
Can we all just get along? Can we all just get along?
Better. Lord have mercy. I can't disavow Jakes too. It's like, you got Bill Cosby, who I grew up on the Cosby. Now you don't want me to like him, but that's forever gonna be a part of my life and upbringing because I didn't have parents like that. And then you got R. Kelly. Almost every Black person has one song that they can relate to: a wedding, a reunion, a funeral.
My gosh,
I'm having to disavow too many of the folks that is ingrained in my upbringing right now.
Right?
Yeah,
I
can't have it be true. I don't want, because I've had things outrageous said about me from haters that just perceive that I may have a relationship. I've had more people talk about rumors of people they think I slept with, and the ones I actually slept with, you never mentioned because you didn't know.
Come on.
So I know how rumors can get out of control because I've been the victim of that. So that's why I'm not always quick to believe it.
Yes.
Again, unless you show yourself and admit in public, I'll never know, because I'm not gonna go and try to get down to granular truth because your life has nothing to do with my life.
Right. I get it. It ain't that deep. It just ain't that deep. So
it's not. They're making him God, and that's the problem.
That's the problem. They done put him on a pedestal. And if that
Yeah.
pedestal look like it's going to weave a little bit, just fall a little bit, girl, people be devastated. People be devastated. My good Sophia, I can talk to you all day. She said, "No, you ain't."
It's like all girlfriends catching up.
I know, right? I love this conversation. But you mentioned that you have some books. Can you tell us where to get your books?
Yes. So you can find my books on my website, sophiastrother.com, basically just my name. And so I have Sophia, I'm Back, which was the first book that I wrote when I was like 25 or 26 years old. And it's called Sophia, I'm Back. And it talks about my deceased innocence and really kind of gives a little bit between some poetry, myths versus facts. So we can hear this is what you've been thinking, but this is actually what's happening. And that was at a point when I had just gotten out. So I was really fresh out in that space. And I talk about, again, some really practical tips that I use to get through with a spiritual lens. Okay. And then my second book is Taking My Life Back. And it's a 9-week workbook. And that one is coupled with my book and a book called You Are What You Think. Okay. And it's by David Stoop. And I integrate reading both my book and his book as you read through how to use emotions and feelings on a weekly basis. How do you realize your circumstance and why it's here? And then in the very back, I have like over 100 quotes to help you start tangibly learning to love yourself again. Because that was my biggest issue. People used to say, you got to love yourself first. What is that? Love is sex to me.
What does that look like?
What is that? I think I'm ugly. My body brings unnecessary sexual attention. What is that? So these are just scriptures where you can start saying them out loud while you look at yourself in the mirror to start building up a tangible love for self.
I absolutely love it. Can we put her website up so we can recommend they go get those books? I'm certainly going to buy them myself. I'm super excited about getting that. Okay. And it looks like one other thing I want. Oh, do you have any courses? So do you teach business principles, practices? Do you have any courses?
Yeah, so I basically have, and on my website, you'll be able to see all of the different ones, but I do ministry teachings as well. I also do business because I have been successful. I'm also a real estate agent and do developing some properties.
Girl, you just, I'm telling you my shero.
So, I talk about what's necessary to really kind of build out that fortitude in knowing a good investment. Yeah. And then I do financial literacy as well with that. But then I also do creating a safe zone within the church. So I like to do customized trainings within ministries about how to address sexual harassment, assault, and domestic violence, which unfortunately, especially here in Texas, we've noticed most of the larger casualties of domestic violence have been actually in a church. In San Antonio, a man went to a church to find his estranged wife and killed 26 people, including the pastor. So there's several different instances that we can, in current time, show what domestic violence can spill over into your ministry, and you need to be well equipped to be able to address it.
Wow, that's very, very powerful. All that can be found on sophiastrother.com. We're definitely going on there and buying some products. I definitely want those books ASAP. Oh my gosh. Sophia, any final comments or any words?
Yes, my theme has been learning to exhale. And, we just concluded a conference, the Learning to Exhale Symposium and Retreat, really just learning how to be self-focused. I recently had somebody, and it shocked me because I feel I'm like the most unselfish person in the world. And maybe because they didn't personally get something that they wanted from me in that moment. But I actually took that to heart, and I said, in 2024, I'm really going to be self-focused. This is what selfish is going to look like. And it's going to look like me having no as a full sentence, period, stop. It's going to look like actually putting me on my calendar, putting time on my calendar to do me. Whether it's a couple of hours to do an audio book or to actually read the book, or it is to walk the park, or like Saturday, I got through with a church conference and I booked myself a 90-minute massage by myself just so I can get a little time. So I would just encourage you all, if you have run into any obstacles lately, it is for a reason. And I know we hate to hear that, but what is God trying to relay to you? What is something you can glean and learn from that particular incident? In 9 months, I had 7 surgeries, lost my parents, lost my son's father, and went through a trial. And at the end of that time, when I got to December, that was the end of the 9-month period stretch, I said to God, what am I about to birth? And as I go into 2024, birthing an inspiration for self is the assignment, because we have to be the priority. And so hopefully I leave you with that you are more than enough to make you a priority. It's not being bougie. It's not being selfish. It's being self-focused so that you can continue to go through this journey with a sound mind.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't have said it better myself. Let me tell you something. I actually just signed up for a cosmetics class where I decided I want to be able to formulate my own cosmetic. Girl, I love it. Okay. But that is my time for me to do me. And I absolutely love it. Oh my gosh. This has been an amazing time with you. I just want to thank you again for taking some time out to speak with us. And you'll be back. Trust me. You'll be back. And I'm coming to Texas.
This was an honor. Trust me, I definitely admire you and the work that you are doing on a national level and even on a local level. So again, the fact that you even honored me to be here on your show, thank you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're the best. All right. So that concludes this episode of Blast. I'm going to tell you all, go to Sophia's website, purchase the product, support what she's doing, and remember, self-care is not selfish. Thank you.
That concludes another mind-blowing episode of Industry on Blast. Thank you for joining us on this riveting exploration of the industry's secrets. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode as we continue to unveil the truth. Visit our website at www.blastnetwork.com to catch up on previous episodes and stay connected. If you have a story to share or are interested in becoming a sponsor or guest, we want to hear from you. Together, we can ignite change and create a world free from the shadows. This is Industry on Blast, signing off.